Welcome to ConnectionsHQ.com, the headquarters for connecting Christians.
Thank you for tuning in Connections HQ, the headquarters for connecting Christians. I am your host, Christiana Green. As we continue our series to assist Christian writers, we have a special guest today, literary agent Mr. Chip MacGregor. Chip, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm glad that we're on the line today. I'm super excited. So I just want to give our listeners a little bit of background about you. I know you have a laundry list that's amazing, and we're going to make sure we send people to your website so they can read all of that. But I do have a few key points that I want to let everybody know. For our listeners, Mr. Chip is the founder of MacGregor Literary. Chip was the senior editor and literary agent for several other houses before starting his own company in 2006. Now his company represents over 1,000 books. Chip is a renowned blogger that helps authors think strategically about their careers, their stories, and their choice of publisher. Another little fun tidbit that I did find is that Mr. Chip has been in the industry for about 40 years now. So we have a wealth of wisdom on the line today. So I'm really excited for us to be able to chat with him and hear all of the great things that I'm sure he'll share with us today. So I definitely encourage you, if you can, grab yourself a notebook and just jot down some notes. I hear he's a great storyteller. All right. You ready to go, Mr. Chip?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So before we really get digging down anything deep, can you just really explain to us exactly what is a literary agent?
Sure. A literary agent is someone who works and represents authors. And so, Christy, if you were doing a book, for example, different authors need different things. So it's the same. I mean, if you were going to a doctor, sometimes maybe you need one thing done, and the next time, one time you need your tonsils out, and the next time you need to get something else checked. Or if you're going to an attorney, sometimes you need an attorney to help get your will together. Other times, you really need somebody to look over the contract that you're signing on your house, and so literary agents serve different roles. Here's what I do. If you were doing a book, you and I would talk, and we talk a little about the idea. Is it a big idea? Is it a saleable idea? Is the writing strong enough? Do you need to think through the idea a little bit more? Can we talk through it? Do you need help with the writing? Do you need an editor or even a collaborative writer to step in and assist you? And then we're talking through things like, who do we want to talk to about publishing this book? And who's the audience for this book? And so then it's nice, once it's ready, it's nice for you to have somebody who has connections in the industry already, so that you come to an agent who, maybe you're writing a book on how to raise kids, and you talk to an agent who's done some other books on that very topic with some other people. And so then they know who to talk to, so they can make introductions, and they can get it seen. And that's one of the things, with Amazon here currently selling, 15 million different titles, I think.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, discoverability is so hard. How do you even get seen? And so one of the things that an experienced agent has is some kind of connections. You hate to say it's who you know, but sometimes it is who you know. And they get it seen, and they can introduce it, and they can talk about it, and then the publisher, in a situation like that, the publisher knows the agent, trusts them, they're going to look at it, and also they're going to take it seriously, because it's not just something that's coming in cold. It's something where the agent has called and talked to them and said, hey, this is who Christy is, and she's well known, and she has this radio, this blog, podcast that people listen to, and she's got this many listeners, and she does this kind of speaking and can kind of pitch you to them. Then answer questions when they have questions, go back and forth a little bit if we need to tweak it. Solicit offers. A literary agent will solicit offers on your book, and maybe there's a couple of companies that are both interested, but they're very different, and you need to be able to talk through with somebody who knows this is why you might want to consider going with them. This is the strengths and weaknesses of both places. And then the important thing, of course, is they have to know contracts. A literary agent is going to negotiate the contract. Most authors, when they're writing, they just don't know anything about publishing contracts. And a good agent knows how to read and review and make notes on a publishing contract, and then ensures contract compliance. And then usually, once you've got a signed contract. I make sure that you hit your deadline, you turn your book in on time and everything. And then when the book comes out, then we really start going again because there's all the marketing behind it, and we're trying to be involved with the marketing of your book to make sure that you're maximizing your opportunities to be able to get the book out there and get it read and sold. So those are some of the things an agent does. And, of course, not every agent is the same. Some are great editors. Some are great contracts people. Some are great marketing people. You can imagine that nobody's great at everything. All the people who have been doing this for a long time, I've been doing this about 21 years, all the people who've been doing it for a long time probably have some pretty good experience in a broad range of things in publishing.
Wow, I love it. There's just so many. The one thing I've learned with all these interviews, there's so many working parts to getting your book out there to the actual reader. Sometimes we think it's just having the finished product, but there's just a lot that goes in behind it. So it's sounding like you can actually be in contact with the literary agent before your actual book is finished, correct?
Yeah, yes, it really depends on the project. Because, for example, right now, if you were writing a novel, it is just about impossible for me to sell a novel based on, a synopsis of the story and a couple of sample chapters. These days, just about every publisher, they want to be able to take the manuscript and read the whole thing. So in that case, the book's probably going to need to be done unless you've got your own TV show or something like that. And if you do have your own TV show and you're listening, please call me.
Love it. I love it.
But the fact is, if you're doing a nonfiction book, and whether it's maybe it's a relationship book, or maybe it's a parenting book, or maybe it's a marriage book, or maybe it is a spirituality book, or maybe it's a book on prayer, or maybe it's a book on success, or maybe it's a book on walking deeper, or whatever it is. Oftentimes, just having a great description, a great proposal. This is what the book is. Here's what's unique about it. Here's what's strong about it. Here's my platform as the author. Here's who I am. Here's an overview of the book, a table of contents, and then here's a couple of sample chapters. And frequently, on a nonfiction book, we can sell the book based on that proposal, the description, and some samples.
Gotcha. Okay, so novel. So if you're writing a novel, it needs to be completed. But if you have some type of nonfiction work, devotional, something that's some how-tos, things of that nature, great description can actually go ahead, and some samples can get your book out there and sold that you can kind of work with. Now, when it comes to working with an agent like yourself, just because you're so well known, do you tend to ever take on new authors at all, or do you prefer to have people who are already kind of been down the path, have a kind of a following for themselves, and then that would be a better suit for maybe a larger size agency?
That's a good question. I think, first of all, every agent prefers to pick up a client who's already written books and been successful, and it's easier. I mean, you're working with somebody, they've already published books, they've got a following, they've had some success and everything. But at the same so certainly everybody prefers that, but at the same time, there's nothing more fun for an agent than discovering a new writer, somebody who just has they've got a fresh voice and they've got something really interesting to say, and you're discovering them, and nobody's heard their story before, and that is just that's so fun. People sometimes ask me at conferences, what's the one thing you're looking for? And I know what they mean. They think that somehow I'm like saying, oh, I really want a cozy mystery where the hero of the story is, a baseball player or something. They're looking for something specific, or, oh, I'm really looking for a book on weight loss or something. But that's not usually how the job works for an agent. Most of us, we're looking for good writers. And so I am always a sucker for a great voice. That is when I'm reading something and suddenly the person I'm reading, oh, there's just great voice. It's got a wonderful feeling, wonderful personality to the writing. You can just see what this person is like. That's the most fun thing ever.
Oh, I love that. Now, when you experience something of that nature, how does someone get their manuscript or their concept in front of an organization or agency that's actually not accepting submissions? Like, what do they do then? Like, how do you hear that voice if they're like, hey, no, right now we're not accepting? What's another way they can get to that, you or someone in that route?
And that's the reality today, Christy. I realize it's hard. I've been doing this a long time, so I realize it's hard. You know, a writer comes in, they spend a bunch of time, they got this idea, they spend a bunch of time researching, they spend time writing, and then they rewriting it, and then how do you get it in front of an agent? And I should say, you know, not everybody is always going to need an agent. There's going to be times where you can go directly to a publisher and show it to them. You meet them somewhere at a conference or something like that. Or there's going to be times where the best thing on this particular idea is you indie publish it. You go to Amazon or you go to Smashwords or you know, and you take your book and you post it yourself. And there's nothing wrong or illegitimate about doing it that way. But in traditional publishing, you're going to an agent. And it's become harder because there's fewer, you know, if publishing is a building, there's fewer doors that are open or fewer windows that you can sneak through than there used to be. And so I will always say to people, do a little research. First of all, check out the local writing conferences. There are conferences, there's Christian conferences, there's college conferences, there's regional conferences. There's organizational conferences. For example, if you're a children's writer, you know, check out the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. Or if you're a romance writer, check out RWA, Romance Writers of America. They do local, regional, and national conferences. So sometimes in a genre there's a conference. Or the local college, local university will be having some kind of a one-day publishing conference. And there's great conferences around the country. And oftentimes at a conference like that, you can be face-to-face with an agent. One of the best conferences on the planet, if you're a Christian novelist, ACFW, American Christian Fiction Writers. They have a great conference every fall. And good people, a bunch of agents, a lot of publishers there and everything. You know, and you can sit down at lunch and you're looking across and here is, you know, an editor who's acquiring manuscripts, you know, for HarperCollins, or you can set an appointment to sit down and have a few minutes to pitch an agent with your idea. So that would be one way. Another way is to do some research, and it's not as hard as it looks. It's not as hard as it might seem at first. People think, writers tend to think that publishing is like a mystery, but it's not. I always say to people, understand your commercial potential. Try and figure out who's going to buy this? What's the interest or the need for this book? And then you can research this. You can go to a publisher's marketplace. If you just Google publisher's marketplace, they have a way to research who are the agents that have sold books in your area. Like who are the agents who sold, you know, you're doing a book on healthy living. You know, who are the agents who have done a bunch of healthy living books? Or you can research by publisher. Who are the publishers and the different imprints of the publishers? You know, I mean, Penguin Random House has, I don't know, 70 or 75 imprints. But who are the imprints at all the different houses? You can also go to agentquery.com. You can go to querytracker.net. You can go to writersmarket.com. So in other words, you can research your genre and you can research the agent. And then you're just going to ask some questions. You know, who does this kind of stuff? Who's got a track record in these kinds of books? And I always say, you know, if you can do that, then sometimes you can figure out, how do I get this person's attention? Is it with the idea? Is it with the great writing? Is it with my personality? Is it with my platform? You know, how can you capture the agent's attention and actually pitch them the idea? But then when you sit down with them, of course, when you sit down with them, you want to be able to ask them some good questions. And that's one of the things is that, you know, I've been at conferences sometimes where I'll sit down with people and then they freeze up. I can't believe I just had a thing with you. You know, and, you know. This is true. I'm not making fun of people when I say this, but I've had people sit down and burst into tears because they're so nervous.
Oh,
and it's like,
yeah.
I've been so scared.
I've been wanting
I'm always like,
so much.
yeah, but I'm always like, look, relax. It's just, we're just talking. We don't, nobody's committed to anything at this point. Let's just talk. Why don't you tell me what your book is all about? But I think there are some questions, and I'll try and do some